Hello everyone.
Hello.
That was too much. Okay, so I'm Chris. Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming today, and thanks SF and BGF for hosting. Excited to talk to you all. How many of you are confident about AI? Just show of hands. Even those hands are quite sheepish, aren't they? Nobody's that confident. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to try and explore from the ground up really what AI is, what it means, hopefully show you a couple of examples of some of the stuff you can do today. This stuff is pervasive. Some of you will already be dabbling in this already, but hopefully for everyone there's something you can take away and go and think about today. We're going to have time for questions at the end of the session as well, after the second Chris has come up and spoke as well. There is. So let me begin. And I'm going to take you back to 1956. What was happening in 1956? Elvis, just becoming a star, launched his album and was shooting to fame. There was a transatlantic cable, submarine cable deployed, which was pretty cool. And also, there was the Dartmouth Conference, which brought together the best minds from around the world to come and talk about what they termed thinking machines. Okay, and they got together for a couple of days, and at the end of it, they concluded that within a generation, we would have machines as good as humans at pretty much any task. Right? Great. I think everyone knows that we didn't quite get there. Right? So there was all this buzz and excitement. In 1956, you had some initial traction, you had investment like never before, you had talent flooding into the space, you had all this opportunity bubbling up. That was known as the AI summer. When the hype wasn't met by reality, when the expectations and the promises weren't met, we got AI winter, which is where all the funding dried up, all the activity dried up, and AI became a dirty word. We've had cycles of that, 2 or 3 cycles of that since the 1950s. Okay, so where you get these periods of just immense hype, like loads of hype about what AI can do, but the promise isn't quite met. And so these cycles of AI summer and winter continue. I think everyone would probably agree we're in an AI summer now. Yeah. The question for me is whether this is the endless summer, or is winter coming, right? Is there something different about this time, or is it the cycle repeating? Just a little bit about me. So my background is, as we said, AI. I actually turned up at university, I think I chose English Lit, or Maths and Business, or something I obviously didn't care about, because I switched to AI when I saw AI. I just watched iRobot with Will Smith. And this was before the Oscars slap, so he was very respectable in those days, and I thought, I'm a little bit like Will Smith, so I chose AI, never looked back, right? Loved it, stayed to do a master's and PhD as well. But I couldn't see past the cliff edge of automation that I felt like was coming for most people's jobs. A little bit more about me. I've got 2 little boys, 3 and 1. They're the reason for the bags under my eyes. And I grew up in Birmingham. This is what AI thinks growing up in Birmingham looks like. Pretty accurate, although the sun's shining today, isn't it? So, yeah, get better AI. We've got some sunshine. That cliff edge of technology I was talking about, you know, we term it the tech skills gap historically. And you know, people try and get across that, but they fail because it's really difficult to break into technology. And people have to constantly adapt to change. So what I set up was a company called School of Code, which helped gently cannon people across that chasm and land them into tech jobs. So we started almost 10 years ago as a little experiment, taking a random bunch of people and taking them through a really intensive course and helping them adapt to the new way of thinking for the digital age. So becoming programmers, becoming project managers, becoming DevOps engineers, cybersecurity experts, you name it. And that was our passion and dream, to try and help people navigate this change, because AI might create some new jobs, let's assume that for now, but that doesn't help someone who's been planning to do the same job for 20 years. and has suddenly found that taken from under them. And so we started in person, COVID hit, we moved it online and managed to reach many, many more people. So we've helped thousands of people now across the UK get into jobs and managed to change government policy now. So there's the Skills Bootcamp Fund, which is really unique in the world actually, the government helping people transition really quickly into career changes, which is based on work that we did with the WMCA and the DFE. So 1956 is when AI as a research field started. What's changed since then? Not much. Actually, we're using exactly the same techniques as been used for 40 years, pretty much, give or take a few optimizations. So I'm just going to talk you through them at a bit of a high level. And it's all based on how the human brain works, but we're going to abstract away from that and not get distracted by that for a minute or two. But underneath, the inspiration for the AI that you use and see today is exactly how the human brain works. Instead of talking through the human brain, we're just going to see AI for now as a black box. Data goes in, something happens, prediction comes out. Everyone happy? You all know AI. We're going to have a look what that black box is, do not worry. But this is the general take of what neural networks do. They take in data, they do some stuff with it, they make a prediction. What data? Numbers, okay? Everything boils down to numbers, so if you can represent it in a number, you can feed it to AI. What can you represent in a number? I was actually at a local authority conference and used this as an example, seems pretty relevant for Birmingham at the moment as well, so I've kept it in. Waste collection data. So you could put this into AI and say, right, day of the week is Tuesday, let's call that 2, second day of the week. Month is December, 12, 100 tonnes were collected last week, 500 people per kilometre squared is the density of population, there are 0 public holidays scheduled, right? That is all data that leads to the output of 115 tonnes. So when we record that data on Tuesday in December, and there's no public holidays, then we get 115 tonnes. So what we're going to do is we're going to feed that into the machine. We're just going to feed those numbers in. And what I want you to picture, the mental model I want you to take away, is these dials, right? Is anyone like an aspiring DJ? The wrong room for that, okay, I get that. So if you've ever seen these DJ decks, you've just got tons of little dials, right? And if you tweak them, the sound coming in, the signal coming in, gets modulated, gets changed, and then you get a different sound out, right? And if you tweak them slightly, you get completely different sounds. So that's what we're essentially picturing here. We're picturing a bunch of dials that we can tweak. So first off, those dials are just in random positions, right? Like we're just starting to feed in data. We don't know what that data is. It's just a bunch of numbers. So we start them off in random positions, and we ask for a prediction out. So we say, right, those are the numbers coming in, just give me a number out, and it gives us 250. That's wrong. So what do? We just tweak some of these dials. That's all that happens. We just tweak randomly, if you like, just tweak a couple of dials, and then we try again. And we say, okay, what comes out this time? 90. Closer, still not right. Okay, so tweak the dials again. So we tweak the dials again, and we stumble across the right answer, 115. So we've learned the pattern in that data. Now, one example is not going to help us. So we need as many examples as possible. And if it can learn the pattern in those ways over a bunch of examples, and it can be on average right, then on average you've got a really useful machine learning algorithm. You've got a really useful neural network. So what we do is we just feed these examples in one by one, have it predict, have it guess what the answer should be, and if it was wrong, have it tweak those dials. So that's the mental model I want you to picture. Everyone happy with that so far? Yeah? Okay. Silence I'll take as good. So what we need to do is feed in numbers then. So we need to feed in data, we need loads of data. The good thing is anything can be represented as numbers. So an image can be represented as numbers. We can take each pixel, we can give it a red, green and blue value in numbers, and that's represented the whole image now. We just have a bunch of numbers to feed in. So So let's try and feed them in. We have some inputs on the left here, and we have some labels, right? We know the inputs at the top are dogs, we know the inputs at the bottom are cats. And so, what we want to do is ideally, that prediction coming out, when we feed those inputs in and we say, right, do you think that's a dog or a cat? We hope that we get the right answer out. And if we don't, we tweak those dials. And we say, no, you guessed cat, but it's a dog. I'm just going to tweak some of these dials, see if there's a random assortment of dials that has you produce the right answer. And again, after we train over a bunch of data, a bunch of examples, then on average we'll be right. But more than that, we can see new examples that we've never seen before, and we should be able to take a pretty good guess at what's there. So a new picture of a dog, you'd imagine dog would come out as the guess. And a new picture of a cat, you'd imagine a cat. Okay, this is historically where we've had a bottleneck in AI, because it's not that simple for computers, okay? Computers are stupid. So you can feed in a load of pictures of chihuahuas, but if all you're doing is tweaking machine parameters, then it's just recognizing random things, random patterns, random assortments of those numbers, and saying, oh, maybe three dark dots on a beige background is a chihuahua. And so it's really hard to tell the difference between a blueberry muffin and a chihuahua. In fact, I'd struggle, to be honest. There's many examples of that. A labradoodle and fried chicken, a sheepdog or a mop, a puppy or a bagel, a Shiba or a marshmallow. Historically, this has always been the bottleneck, okay? Because what you need is tons of those dials and tons of that data. Okay? That's really what you need to scale it. So it is now different. Let's have a look. So we've got more data than ever before. Okay, so each 2 days we produce more data than the entirety of human civilization before the year 2000. So data is not a bottleneck anymore. We have more data than we know what to do. Compute power. You need loads of compute power to get those dials turning and randomly try things. You need tons of compute power. The iPhone in your pocket, or Android, if you're that way inclined, the iPhone or Android in your pocket is 100,000 times more powerful than the computer that put man on the moon. So 100,000 times more powerful in your pocket. More than that, this stuff is cheap. That card, which has a little chip that just when you open it, the card sings to you, probably costs 99p, that is more powerful than the computer that put men on the moon. So in that time of the last 50, 60, 70 years, the explosion in compute power and how cheap it is now means that processing that data is just not a problem. And it's more accessible than ever. So I'm boiling this down to these 3 items, but you know, we don't any longer, to experiment with this stuff, have to set up our own servers. It's not that intensive an operation because we can just rent these servers from Google, Amazon, and they have just tons of data centers, the most highly optimized engineering in the world to run these machine learning algorithms. So, whereas before we were picturing just a couple of dials, now we want to picture lots of dials. Okay, as many dials as you can imagine. So rather than these 10, Facebook released a model last year, Llama 3, that had 500 billion parameters, which is 500 billion of these dials. Okay, so all of a sudden, what was confusing for a small amount of dials to recognize between a blueberry muffin and a chihuahua, with 500 billion dials, you can model a lot of complexity. Right? There's a load of weird little relationships that can turn up in those numbers. So that's all that's happened really, is we've stacked tons and tons and tons of these parameters of these dials together. And we come to generative AI. So what does Gen AI mean? How does it relate? And I should say, I've never stuck to time in my life, so just let me know if I'm running over by a long way. I'll see some panicked waves. So Gen AI, instead of having pictures fed in and getting labels out, we want to switch it up. We want to feed in labels, we want to feed in text, and we want to get a picture out. Okay, so that's one version of AI, generating something. So, picture of a dog, if we feed that in, we want some pictures of dogs. Picture of a cat, we want some pictures of cats. That means that we have the capability to make images that have never existed before. Okay, so no longer are we confused between blueberry muffins and dogs, we can merge them. Here's a hybrid, a blueberry muffin chihuahua. These were created a couple of years ago now, but they're still relevant in some ways. So these are pictures that have never existed before, okay? So a Captain America Pikachu and an Iron Man Pikachu, okay, it wasn't trained on that data, it was trained on things like Pikachu and like Captain America, but it's been able to produce things from that learning that have never existed before, which is cool. What you'll notice though is, there's like 6 fingers here. Okay, so it doesn't always know everything the way that a human would know it, right? We know people have 5 hands. It understands what a hand is, sort of, but does it exactly know that there should be 5 fingers on it, or fingers on the thumb? Who knows? And so that gives us opportunities. For example, if you want to commit a crime over the next 6 months, I'd advise you to buy a fake finger, and any CCTV, you can say that's AI generated. There's an extra finger. That's not supposed to be. That's not me. That got a few people's attention a bit too much. I don't want that. That's really cool. So we've basically scaled up to a point that we've got really great capability in AI. Compared to anything that we've ever had before, it's phenomenal. And we're going to go through that in a minute. But that doesn't slow down, that speeds up. Okay, so here's the equivalent of a supercomputer a couple of years ago, and that's going to be sold for $3,000 by NVIDIA, and you're able to have it under your desk. And it's the equivalent of what a supercomputer cluster would have been a couple of years ago. So this pace of change isn't slowing down from what we can see. So we are in an AI race. Okay, so you'll feel that from the companies that are investing tons of time and money and talent and searching for AGI or just really useful AI. And we're going to go through a couple of the options of companies that you could lean on or leverage if you're trying to use that sort of technology. But it's definitely a race, and what I mean by that, it's heads down, get there first, don't worry about the rest. Because whoever gets there first wins in AI. There is no follower advantage, right? It is who gets there first wins. That's not classically how it works in business, right? First usually makes all the mistakes, somebody can come over and copy it quite quickly. In AI, fundamentally, whoever gets there first wins. And if they win, or if we keep producing AI, robots may well be taking more and more jobs. But AI creates new jobs, that's what everyone always tells me. And that is true, actually, right? Technology has always created more jobs than it's taken. Is that fair to say for people? For example, social media influencer. A couple of years ago, we would not have known what that was, right? And now it's a thriving industry. This young lady here earns $10,000, $20,000 a month as a social media influencer, right? Nuts. Unfortunately, she's AI as well, so it's taking the new jobs already. Unbelievable. She's AI generated, and what I want to show you, this is a bit of a meme really, but I want to show you the pace of change, because this is the first generated image of a human face back in 2014 with something called a GAN. You can tell that the researchers in that room were jumping for joy, high-fiving each other, thinking, we've cracked it, this is unbelievable. It's pretty crap. A couple of years later, I mean, it's improved in some ways, but still not the best. And then just 2 years after that, AI was generating faces that scientific studies showed were more realistic than human faces. So people were asked to choose between AI-generated faces and real humans, and they chose the AI-generated faces as the real ones. So we've gone from like crappy, pixelated, not fooling anyone, to more real than reality in less than a decade. Okay? So that is the pace of change we're talking about, and again, it doesn't slow down. This lady doesn't exist, this TED Talk never happened, So images can be bled into video. It's just a series of images. The resolution gets better. The model gets better of how do we model human behavior. Even though we're just trying to generate images and we've just been trained on loads of examples, you can see breathing and eyes closed and a yoga pose in 2025, and that's going to get better and better. So the future, who knows? That's Sam Altman, if anyone wants to, doesn't recognise him, the CEO of OpenAI. But there is a question, right? Like, at this pace of change, what is worth doing and focusing on, especially people with kids, including myself? You know, what should we be telling our kids to go and train in, and what shouldn't we? Right? What are up for grabs and what aren't? But the thing I really want to get across to you is the exponential growth. Okay, so what we think of typically is linear growth as humans, just the way we're programmed, and even when we see exponential growth, in hindsight, we rationalize it as linear. So you will have heard this, right? Because this stuff is amazing. The capability we have now is amazing. But everyone will be like, oh, yeah, but of course it's easy to do this, or it's easy. A couple of years ago, this would have been seen as absolute breakthroughs in technology that we didn't plan for. But now we are able to process it linearly. So I don't want you to forget about the exponential growth, and we're on that curve. Will it continue? Who knows? A quick pop quiz. To show some of the capabilities now. Who can tell what that first? These are fed to AI as sayings, and it just has to come up with an image. So first image, wolf in sheep's clothing. There you go. I would have accepted sheepdog, but wolf in sheep's clothing is correct. Second image, popcorn chicken. So this has taken no skill, right? It's completely de-skilled. There is no designer present. There's not even any creative talent present. It's me saying, make a wolf in sheep's clothing and make popcorn chicken. That's it. So that means we've got tons of opportunity, right? Opportunity to do silly things like crush myself and make myself Thanos away. But some more serious things. This is a little bit old now, actually, but I wanted to keep it in. Off a single headshot and an audio track, you can lip sync someone to say anything you like. Okay, so this is actually about a year old now. You might be able to see some glitches. Those are not apparent now. I'll actually try and show you that live in a little bit. So all of you have a headshot online, so I can make any of you say anything I want at any time in digital form. OpenAI released Sora. This is the initial version of Sora, so it's actually improved since then. So this is a fly-through of a town in the California Gold Rush, completely AI generated. Right? Now you might see some little weird things here and there, but again, this stuff's going to get better and improve over time. And it has real-world impacts. For example, there are billions of pounds of investment in film studios that have been cancelled because if you're building a film studio, you need it to pay dividends over the next 10, 15 years. And nobody in that industry believes that that's going to be state-of-the-art. How you get, live film studios is going to be how you get state-of-the-art quality for your films. They believe it's going to be AI. AI generated, I'm going to whiz through some of these. AI generated advert for a can of drink that doesn't exist. I even wanted to, this is what I looked like this morning, by the way. Look at that magnificent beard, and my wife made me shave it. She said, everyone else liked it, but she said she threw up in her mouth every time. I said, what's different? That's not but anyway, I'm holding up some AirPods. I just say, make me an advert for these AirPods. And it spits me out an advert, and then I say, well, just make me an image of that. And it has tried to make me more handsome, but it has kept my beard, so my wife is wrong. It obviously thinks the beard is part of the handsomeness that you see before you. So, making adverts, it takes no skill now, right? You can put politicians in weird things, you can make animals that have never existed, you can make a panda play guitar. You can, for your favourite series, any Severance fans? Okay, so maybe you don't like the main actor, you want to swap him for Keanu, you can. Okay, that capability is coming and it will be real time soon. So you'll be able to make real time choices on the media that you're watching. Okay, which is pretty incredible. I'm going to skip past a couple of these. This video doesn't exist, but look at skateboarding down the Grand Canyon would be pretty cool. Coca-Cola made AI ads, Volvo made AI ads. This is an example of an AI ad. It has got designers involved, but they were able to do this with a fraction of the budget and in about a day, versus the weeks and weeks and the lots of money that it would have taken to make this without AI. You've got cats working in McDonald's. You've got real details, like look at that zoom in of the eye and the reflection and the pupil constricting it. That's not stupid machines necessarily anymore, right? Even though it's all produced by tweaking those dials. That's all it is. Sylvester Stallone before and after, young and old, and even Elvis. We talked about Elvis a little bit before. This is what he would look like if he was alive today, and we can turn that into a video. And we can make Elvis smile, and we can do whatever we want. None of this takes any skill. So the pattern that I really want you to take away is AI squashes the distance between idea and execution. It just disappears, right? In some domains, the skill remains vital, right? You need taste to see, is that what we were looking for or not? Is that robust or not? But in a lot of domains, actually convenience and speed is always going to win, and AI gives you that, it squashes that distance. Even if AI stopped today, if AI development stopped today, then, I'm just looking at how long I've been. If AI development stopped today, it'd take us 10 years to embed all the capability we have today into the products that we use. So we haven't felt the effects of AI. It's just not in any of the products, it's not in any of the workflows. You have to go to a separate app to really use it. Over the next decade, that'll get ironed out. We'll really feel the disruption. But it's not going to stand still, right? There's more money, more talent, more opportunity than ever before in AI. What does that mean? It means things like video verification is dead. Right? It died a couple of years ago. People just haven't caught up yet. You can never believe anything you see online, ever. Even if you're live streaming with someone. So, this is a live stream of a prankster, but he's live pasting Elon Musk's face over his in such a convincing way that he tricked Tesla investors to ask him questions as if it was an annual general meeting. Right? So these are people with vested interests in knowing who Elon Musk is. Arup, not to single them out, it's going to happen to a lot of companies, and they're a brilliant company, but they made a mistake of 25 million because their CFO in Asia jumped onto a call with his assistant on Zoom and said, can you wire these transactions out? And it wasn't their CFO, it was a deepfake. That's to his assistant who sees him every day. So this stuff is taking effect now. Baby peacocks. Anyone ever seen a baby peacock? If you Google it, you might never see one still, because already in Google, if you search baby peacock, 90% of the images are AI generated. So that means when a kid searches baby peacock, they almost never see a real baby peacock. It's just a weird little, we're in a different world, right? Like, who would have thought to measure that? What that tends to mean, and I don't quite believe this, but projections would say, by 2026, 90% of online content is going to be AI generated. So we're going to be in an information apocalypse, right? I don't quite buy that, but still cool to say. So what? Okay, it's just pictures. Chris, calm down. It's not just pictures, you can do words. So how do we hand something to AI? We make it a set of numbers, so we break up a sentence into chunks. Each one of those chunks we assign a number to. So the dictionary, we would just number all the words in the dictionary, right? 1 to a million. I don't know how many words in the dictionary, I should have researched that. And then we feed in those numbers, and specifically for things like ChatGPT, we would say, predict the next word, right? Predict what should come next. So the cat, what you'd want is sat. We got blue, okay? Tweak the dials, we get car. Tweak the dials, we get sat. Nice. Next word, on. Next word, verb. Next word, man. Okay, so you can learn the patterns in words, but you need a ton of data, right? You need lots of data to get that to work. If you do nothing but read for your entire life, 24/7, you'll be able to read 8 billion words. Okay. The AI systems that you will use today are trained on 8 trillion words, and it takes them a month. So the scale of training that they go through, the whole internet they can be put on as data, and they've just got enough data to learn almost anything they want to learn. But it's just predicting the next word, right? Stochastic parrots you'll sometimes hear. But I want to just give you a bit of a thought experiment, and then we'll dive into some practical demos hopefully. So if predicting the next word is all you can do, but you're given a novel and it's a murder mystery, and all of those pages, what they do is they describe the motives, all the characters, all the suspects, all the happenings, and then the very last sentence in the novel is, and the killer is. That system to predict that next word has to understand everything that has gone on in that novel, otherwise it can't predict. Does that make sense? Like, it's just a random guess, and it's not a random guess, it's a prediction. So even these really simple systems that we've described, if you give them enough dials, they can learn really complex behaviours in ways that we just don't understand how to process. So what I want to suggest to you is that what we're actually living through is an age where most of what you saw in sci-fi is possible today. It's just crap. Sci-fi is like the Instagram version, right? All the highlights, everything works. What we have is more like real life. You know, oh, it's good sometimes, but then it's really crap and it makes these mistakes. Blah, blah, blah. This stuff will get better, but that's just the reality. I want to show you a couple of examples of what we're talking about. So let's say, for example, this is a particular app that you can generate content from. So presentations, web pages, documents. Sometimes in these talks, I like to pretend I haven't got any slides, and I just say, just bear with me 1 second. I didn't do that to you guys. You're too smart for that. These other audiences are not. But what I could do is say, okay, just generate me a presentation, an introduction for AI for an audience of business leaders. Okay, let's generate the outline. This is an app called Gamma, really useful. It will generate me the outline. That's great. I'm just going to accept whatever comes back. It can pick a theme. So you'll see it's breaking down the presentation for me. I'm going to try and scroll down here, and I will press, I'm trying to see what's on the screen, I'll press generate. And so what I want you to see is that in real time, it will, as long as the Wi-Fi holds up, put together this presentation. Okay, so that is an example of a really cool use case. Like live, it'll put together the presentation. All I've given it is one line. I can give it way more context to make that presentation way more relevant. But you see, it's managing to understand like what decent infographics might be for the point it's trying to make. Okay, and what you'll see if I linger a couple of seconds longer, you'll see these images get filled in with AI-generated images which are relevant to the content on the page. So these multimodal abilities, right, text, video, audio, they're going to start getting embedded in ways that are really useful to us. I'll skip past these. I'll show you this. Yeah, why not show you this? So we've got the spring statement here, something I'm never going to read. But maybe I need to read it, right? Maybe it's really important for me to get out of that spring statement what's important to me. So there's a really cool service from Google called Notebook LM. So it's completely free. I think you can, I'm on the paid version, but I don't think I get too much for that. And so what you do is you hand it the link and you say, make me a podcast that just describes, for my context, I can't be bothered to read through 500 pages of stuff, make me a 20-minute podcast that just distills the key information for me. And so
it's especially important right now.
Given the uncertainties we're seeing in the global economy.
And the slower growth anticipated in many of our major trading partners.
You could say it's a beacon of potential stability in a somewhat turbulent world.
Definitely.
And it highlights the government's emphasis on domestic policies as engines for growth.
So what are your thoughts on the OBR's assessment of the impact of government policies?
On this economic output.
Well, their projection that government policies will raise the level of output.
Okay, so you get the idea. It's read through all of that. What's really cool is we get this interactive mode where we can interrupt the podcast and speak live to those hosts. And say, hey, that thing that you were just talking about there, I run a business where that's really relevant. Can you just dig into that a little more? And it will come back and do it. I'm not going to do that now because I'm running out of time. We have a watermarked image here. and I just say to Google, remove the watermark, and it says, okay. So free images for life. Don't tell anyone I showed you. But you know, that's a real issue, right? For the stock photo industry. You got no more. You know what you're going to do? Hunt down everyone that's using a photo. Like make sure that it's the exact photo you used. It's really hard to navigate this if you're not prepared with your business model for where this stuff is going to go. You've got to look for where Wayne Gretzky, a hockey player, said. You've got to look to where the puck is going, skate to where the puck is going, not where the puck is. And the problem too much is people focus on where the puck is today and not where things are going, like what's the trajectory, what's going to get harder to do, what's going to get easier to do, and build your business models around that. I'll show you a couple of examples. This is not me. I said I've trained a version of my voice to sound a little bit more palatable.
You're the best looking audience I've ever seen. I'm serious. This group is absolutely beautiful. Now, a slight caveat, I can't actually see.
Okay, so that's not me. It's not me at all. And let's see what I've got here. This is me recording.
In a world where a man has a beard, nothing can compare to its power.
Okay, this is when I had a beard. This made a lot more sense before. Don't judge me. Okay, but in real time, so I can just speak that, and in real time, I can translate it to.
In a world where a man has a beard, nothing can compare to its power.
Okay, so that's real-time audio changing, right? So now, even when you're speaking to someone on the phone, there's no way of verifying who you're talking to and what you're talking to. This is a video podcast between two AI hosts about my CV.
Tech accessible and beneficial to everyone.
Yeah, this leaders being on a mission to empower people, making sure they're not left behind when technology moves.
I'll spare you that. But you get the drift, right? Like there's so much capability there. How's it going to affect your lives? One thing that you can go home and try, and hands up if you've got kids. Okay, everyone, that's why you're here, get away from the kids. Me too, me too. When you go home, you know, I feel bad if I ever am in a position where I've got to do something and the kids need seeing to and whatever, and you're like, oh, just, you know, watch something for half an hour, just watch something. But they're staring at a screen, they're vacant, it's like being a zombie. Wouldn't it be way better to have them interact with something? So what you could try is, my 5-year-old is bored, tell them a story, let them explore what they like and lead it, but make sure you embed the value of kindness in the story and teach them about photosynthesis too. Well, you can just go and do that. And even with video mode in ChatGPT, you can say, but only say the next line of the story when they take a bite of food. Right? So I want you to watch them, only tell them the next line of the story if they have a bite of food. It works. I hate to say it, I've tried it. Now this is where we have to have a discussion as a society, because I don't feel necessarily good about that. I don't feel bad about it. It's better than TV, but ChatGPT is going to be raising your kids. Like, it will. And so we need to have a discussion as a society about that, because social media raised our kids over the last 10 years and nobody's really happy about how that turned out. So we need to grapple with some of this stuff. How long have I got? Does anyone know?
How long's Christmas? That sort of
I'll speed through. So we'll speed through some of these. So, okay. If you're going to go away and use ChatGPT or stuff like that today, a really good mental model, it's been trained on the entire internet. So anything that is really frequent on the internet, it's going to know really well. Anything that's quite rare, it's going to struggle with. So if you were to say, for example, write me a diary entry, it's going to be crap, right? Because it doesn't know what you've done today, it doesn't know your context, it doesn't have any of that data. If you say, help me write a diary entry, you've got all the best diary entrists that have ever existed giving you advice through that process, right? You've got them for free as a coach to give you live feedback on this entry that you're writing. So sometimes it's not necessarily going to be about automation, but augmenting the ability that you've got, right? Because that's just never existed before, that opportunity. However, sometimes it will be about automation. So 74% in a study where they gave complex disease cases to tons of doctors, With physicians only, it got 74% accuracy. With physicians and ChatGPT, it got 76% accuracy, so 2% uplift. With ChatGPT alone, it got 92%. So the doctors were hindering AI, and I believe that. And that's my opinion on doctors. But pretty soon you'll have a doctor in your pocket that knows everything about you. It knows your diet, your sleep patterns. You can talk to it endlessly. It knows your family history. It knows everyone with your genealogy who has ever been studied, every case study, every medicine that's ever been trialed. That is going to happen in the next couple of years because that convenience is just unmissable, right? It just is. What's going to impact you and your companies? Right now, you're probably doing stuff like on Zoom or Teams, you're minuting your minutes, like transcribing them with AI. Okay, that's great. It takes away that manual process. Pretty soon, you will, well, I would say now, you should really think about having an AI board member. What do I mean by that? Okay, somebody in the room, an AI in the room that can live feedback about the discussion, pull information from across the organisation. Oh, that idea you've just been talking about links really well to these 3 projects that are in play at the moment. That's something that's often missing from the high-level discussions that happen. But also be that 10th person in the room, right? If 9 out of 10 people agree, just give us the opposite of what we've just said. Like, just tell us all the holes in what we've just all agreed and high-fived around how we're going to be like the next unicorn. Just tell us where the holes are in that live so that we can have this discussion. So really useful. I'll skip through these. Cybersecurity is going to be vital in this world, right? Because nobody's going to be safe. In a world where AI can implement attacks, cybersecurity is going to be key. We've got Chris from CyberQ at the back and SF Recruitment. Cyber is going to be really important for you to get your heads around. That's going to be the growth area for most businesses, right? And most opportunities. Because the more data you give this stuff, the better it is, but the more at risk you are. The more power you hand over, the more advantage you have, but the more at risk you are. So that's going to work. 20 rule. Okay, speed through this. Okay, here's a load of tools that you could go and use, but at the bottom is really 4 that I would say just pick one of these 4, and the rest will figure itself out, right? The 80-20 rule slide basically was 10 minutes to describe this one point. So we've got Gemini from Google, ChatGPT from OpenAI, Claude from Anthropic, Grok from XAI. If you just pick one of those 4, now the caveat here is, it's sort of like the hare and the tortoise. Can you afford to be 6 months behind? Because if you can't, if you have to be at the bleeding edge, what you need to do is go and experiment with all of those different tools in different ways. Because those tools are going to be the bleeding edge. But a couple of months later, those tools are going to have their lunch eaten by these model providers. The capability will just be in ChatGPT. That's the pattern we're seeing again and again and again. And so if you can afford to be a bit of a tortoise, which doesn't sound great, but honestly I wish I could, I'm the hare because I've got to be on top of all these thousands of useless AI things and weed through them and find the gems. Right? If you don't have to do that, if you don't have to be at the bleeding edge, if you can afford to be 6 months behind, pick ChatGPT or one of the others and just experiment with it, just chat with it, just use it, and when you hit a roadblock, then reach for other tools. Vision problem, blah, 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 I'll finish it now. Oh yeah, your robots are coming. So, AI is more of a mindset shift. People talk about AI skills. I couldn't tell you what those are, right? There's skills to create these models and there's skills to research AI, but AI skills are actually like critical thinking, experimentation, growth mindset, the ability to understand what data you have. None of those are necessarily the skills that we would traditionally have thought were the barrier to adopting technology, right? You always felt like you needed different sets of skills. Primarily, it's a mindset and culture shift and not a technological one that most people are going to go on. And the idea is to be courageous, not go through the benefits or the risks. So part of what I've seen done as chair of Tech West Midlands AI group is stuff like the And Digital AI Adoption Accelerator. So this is part of taking the benefits and the risks, because we had a look at manufacturing as an example in our economic case for the region, because manufacturing is huge in the West Midlands. Okay? The impact of AI on manufacturing would be immense, right? The GVA uplift would be billions, but in manufacturing in particular, AI literally will replace jobs. Right? In many industries, it won't. It will increase the need for people, right? Increase opportunity. Manufacturing, it decimates. And so, one of the cool things about really leaning into that, because you're not going to be able to block that, is how can we help those companies really wrestle with and make sure they're leading with this technology, but also as a region wrestle with how do we support people that are, going to have their livelihoods affected. If anyone's interested, talk to me about AI retreats for senior leaders, because I'm interested to chat.
If you want AI but you don't want to code,
Just listen to this.
give Dr. Chris Meah your money by the boatload. Dr. Chris Meah, he's the AI guy. Throw him in cash, he's super fly. Dr. Chris Meah, can you help us please? Yes, I will if you got that cheddar cheese.
As you might expect, that was AI generated. I think that's pretty cool, right? The cheese! I couldn't do that. So, thanks very much for your time. I'm going to go for a quick break, I think. Toilet break? Yeah, we're going to go for a quick toilet break. I'll hand over to Mike to...
I'll just say thank you very much to Chris. We're going to do that.